Yeah, the industry has lots of challenges. I mean, number one challenge is innovation, investment of money. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a huge investment of funds, and I think it doesn't come easy because of the fact that you have to try many drugs, and one out of many succeed, and I think you have to look for the probability of success from
Mm.
phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 to commercialization and all that. So lots of failures happen, obviously, and only one out of maybe 100 may make it
Okay.
at the end of the day. So that is the biggest challenge. The second challenge is the pricing. What is the gold standard currently, and then you're creating something better than the current gold standard, and can you remain in that pricing level
Mm.
where people can afford, or the payers can afford the therapy. So that's the second challenge. Third challenge is
Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a vodcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to our channel, please consider subscribing to it and hit the bell icon so that you never miss an update. Our episodes go live at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. India time every day. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very senior professional from the pharmaceutical world, Mac Javadekar. Mac, welcome to the show.
thank you very much, Ashutosh. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Mac is now a pharmaceutical advisor for several US companies, but he has spent 28 plus years as the pharma research director with Pfizer Inc. and post Pfizer career 11 years as an independent external advisor to many pharma, biotech, and companies connected to healthcare. So, Mac, let's talk pharmaceuticals now.
Mhm.
Um, when did you decide to enter the pharmaceutical world?
Yeah. So this is going way back when I was 12 years old. My uncle, my father's cousin, he really was the pioneer. In 1962, he traveled to France
Mhm,
and got his doctorate in pharmacy from
mhm,
France. And when he came back, I was only 10 plus years old, and then
mhm,
that time he said, pharmaceutical is a area which is going to grow and which is really going to make a difference going forward, and it will always be a growth area. So
mhm,
he kind of put a seed inside my head saying, hey, people become either engineers or doctors. So in India, at least, that's how I saw
mhm,
it growing up. But then I looked for, hey, is there a pharmacy college out there that I can get myself enrolled in? And sure enough, I was living in Kolhapur, and in Karad there was a college of engineering, but
mhm.
they had a department of pharmacy which was enrolling pharmacy students. So that's where the seed got planted, and that's how it all began.
Wonderful, wonderful. And then you moved to the US and you got involved in the research side.
Exactly. So I immigrated to the US because it was that time, anybody who was applying got a green card. So I said, okay, I might as well try and see what's out there in the US. I mean, there was no intent to leave India per se, but an opportunity came where hey, my friend who was a colleague of mine at the UDCT, Bombay University Department of Chemical Technology.
Mhm,
This is going back in '74. He said, hey, US, why don't we try it out? And I said, why? I'm happy here. I mean, India was doing well, everything was going well, and but he said, hey, there is nothing lost. The worst thing is we go there, tour the world, and come back and settle back in India. But he really essentially compelled me to apply and got getting in into the US. So I said, okay, let's try it. And then I was happy to come out here, and University of Minnesota, Professor Rippey, who was my advisor, he really said, you can do well if you do well in the studies. So I took that as a mantra for succeeding in life. So I enrolled in the PhD program. I got my PhD in end of '81, and Pfizer recruited me right there. So I
amazing.
became a lifelong Pfizerite from 1982.
Fantastic. And for our viewers and listeners, Pfizer is right at the forefront of the COVID challenges that are being handled. I think Pfizer's vaccine is also getting approved in India very soon. So, Matt, tell me what goes into creating a formulation?
Yeah, so formulation is, again, there are two segments which, and I won't get into too much of details, but I think if you were to tell a layman, what is a formulation and what does it take to create a formulation,
Mhm.
I think you have to think it two different ways. I mean, there is a small molecule and a large molecule, and biologics is little complex, but people can get there and get formulations done in biologics as well as small molecules. Small molecules, you have to worry about three things. One is the stability of the small molecule, and then the compatibility of small molecule, along with the excipients that you are incorporating in it, and then looking for that light saying it is compatible with the excipients, it doesn't degrade, it has got stability for X number of months at certain temperatures and conditions. And then the most important is the in vitro release profile of the drug, so it dissolves and becomes bioavailable once you ingest something. And then same thing is true, once if it is parenteral or injection type system, then you have to make sure that all the formulations for the injection obviously is compatible with the system. So it's all about that, and biologics, same thing is true. So it's more complex. Yeah.
And when I was reading about you, you have worked on some very, very interesting and iconic brands, if I can use that from the pharmaceutical world. If it's not confidential, would you like to talk a little bit about them?
Yeah. No, as a bench scientist, when I started out, my title was research scientist and at the bench. I mean, it was essentially working in the laboratory and roll up your sleeves and work on the new chemical entities, because that's what Pfizer did. And Pfizer that time in 1982 was, I think, 95% small molecules. So work with the aldose reductase inhibitors. So Pfizer was working on one of the aldose reductase inhibitors, very early stage compound, but then I got to work on it, which we called Sorbinil, those at that time, and then went to the phase 3 program, and then lo and behold, in phase 3 trials, when hundreds of patients were studied in that stage, a small group, about 2% of the patients got skin rash. And when they saw that, I mean, the drug was very efficacious for what it was designed to do, but then because of the skin rash, Pfizer decided not to pursue aldose reductase inhibitor. So this is kind of what I call the lesson learned, and that opened up my mind and saying, hey, failure is not a bad thing, because you learn from it and you do better at the next thing you are doing. So then I got to work on Zoloft, which is sertraline hydrochloride, which is also it's a serotonin reuptake inhibitor type drug for depression, and so Zoloft became a multi-billion-dollar product, and I got to touch on it as a formulator for the drug, and that was something that I never imagined, that the formulation that I designed, the tablet that I designed, became multi-billion-dollar product around the world. So that was the first one, and then followed by Zithromax, which was in-licensed by Pfizer, but then the formulation came under me, and then I got to work on that one as well, for a tablet as well as a sachet and some other Z-Pack we called it, and so that was the next one. And then Viagra was another one where I could touch upon those for the faster onset formulations. So some of these iconic, you call it, formulations that I could.
For my viewers and listeners, the fact that you were associated with Viagra is a big thing, because that's the only well-known brand across the world, though people may not know who manufactures it.
Yeah, I think Pfizer name came to light because of Viagra more than anything else, but now it is because of COVID vaccine.
I agree. So, you mentioned, that when you decided to join the pharma business, your uncle told you this is an industry that will always prosper. My question to you is that while the industry is booming, what are some of its challenges?
Yeah, the industry has lots of challenges. I mean, number one challenge is, innovation investment of money. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a huge investment of funds, and I think it doesn't come easy because of the fact that you have to try many drugs, and one out of many
Mm.
succeed, and I think you have to look for the probability of success from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 to commercialization and all that. So lots of failures happen, obviously, and only one out of maybe 100 may make it
Okay.
at the end of the day. So that is the biggest challenge. The second challenge is the pricing. What is the gold standard currently, and then you're creating something better than the current gold standard, and can you remain in that pricing level
Mm.
where people can afford, or the payers can afford the therapies. So that's the second challenge. Third challenge is IP can only remain for a certain number of years, and then once it off patent, then companies have to worry about hey, how do you still squeeze
Mm.
whatever out of that, and that's where 505(b)(2)s come in. Then that's where we worry about life cycle management and things of that nature. So those
Very
are
true.
the challenges.
So, companies like Pfizer and other large companies spend billions of dollars on research to be able to
Yeah.
produce all these extremely good medicines. Now, from an Indian perspective, why is it that Indian companies don't spend so much money on research and wait for the end of the uh, 30-year or 35-year period when the product comes out of IPR?
Yeah, so to answer that question, I think as you know and everybody knows, innovation takes money, and to move a drug from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3, which is huge, and that's where the major amount is spent. It can take 1 to 2 billion dollars for a drug to go through, and not that the Indian companies cannot afford that,
Mm.
but what happens is big pharmas have been tuned into doing all this, and
Mhm.
and they have experience of doing it, and now obviously the discovery model had changed as of now, as you know, because companies are now seeking these post POC compounds coming from the smaller biotechs, and in licensing those, or acquiring those assets. So pharma had changed its model as well, but I think because of the heavy spend that is required, and it's the what I call that is spending with risk, and that risk taking is more prevalent with the Western pharma companies
Mm.
versus what I see the MNCs in India.
Mm. Interesting. And across the whole world, including in the US now, there is a big move towards generics. What will generics do to the branded medical, pharmaceuticals?
Yeah, so generics are trying to become what I call branded generics,
Mm.
and I think that is the trend, and the reason I'm saying that is because there is always this 505(b)(2) angle. How do we make the drug which is what I call generic now, but there are a couple of things. If you can take that drug, generic drug, because it is already safety has been established on that, so you
Mm.
can de-risk that by creating some other indications for that drug. So it could be a novel indication, and convert that for the new indication. That's a big, what I call the repurposing of the drug
Mhm.
is number one. Number two, by creating 505(b)(2) type system, you can make it more bioavailable, maybe make it once a day instead of 3 times a day. So
Mhm.
there are means to kind of do better at the existing drugs, which are generic in nature, but you can utilize that. And then third thing is the fixed dose combinations,
Mhm.
and those are becoming more popular because of the advantages they give you. So
Mhm.
that's another third one.
Very interesting. And another movement that seems to be happening all over the world, but not really working, is governments want doctors to start prescribing salts. Doctors write brands.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? I mean, from a big company perspective, brands is necessary because of the billions you're spending.
Mhm.
So I
So,
want to
so
understand.
yeah, I mean, so I think until the patent is still valid, I mean, obviously, no company will have a generic available. So,
Mhm.
so there is a patient loyalty involved in that space, and I think beyond that, I think which is also important is to note that you know people once they get used to certain drug,
Mhm.
they don't want to change because something is available at a better price, because of the value that drug has created.
Mhm.
So I think until the drug becomes generic, people stay on with that, but then again there is a cliff, right? I mean, pharma companies see the cliff because generics, two or three generic companies are already there producing that prior to even they becoming generic. So
Mhm.
you are absolutely right. I mean, there is no way that pharma companies can protect their IPR
Mhm.
beyond the scope.
Okay. And do you think doctors will ever switch to writing only salt on their prescription?
When you say salt, does that mean generics you're talking
Yeah, I
about?
mean, they don't want to write the brand name of the thing, but what are
Oh,
the
I see. So you're saying the generic name on it. Oh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, see, that is something in pharmacies, as you'll probably know. I
Mhm.
mean, with the Guardian that you
Mhm.
established, you
Mhm.
probably know. The patient has a way. At least in the US, I see. They ask you, do you want a generic or do you want the brand? And
Okay.
and this is in the pharmacy. They ask you.
Mhm.
Doctors can prescribe, obviously anything. So they would prescribe just with a generic name, but then the pharmacies will ask you what do you want, and
Mhm.
obviously there is a price differential, right? So those who are willing to pay more out of pocket, they prefer the brand versus
Mhm.
the other
Okay. So at least in the US, you have a choice, but
one.
in
Exactly.
India, for example, the pharmacist does not have the right to make uh, a switch.
See, that is different there because, and again, in India, I have seen, people really don't use prescription.
Mm.
You can go to any pharmacy and get any
Mm.
prescription drug without a
Mm.
doctor's prescription. So again, I won't talk much about the Indian way of
Agree.
doing, but at least in the US, the choice is given to the consumer or the customer to say, "Hey, what do you want?" And then you can choose whatever you want.
Very interesting. So, Mac, I'm now going to move to the next segment of our conversation, which are some questions for you personally.
So,
My first question is that, having, spent so many years at the top of large companies, accompanied the president of the US on a trip to India, um, and now doing some amazing work in other organizations, what are some of the core values you believe
yeah, so core values is again number one is credibility. I mean, I think I respect that to be number one because that's your foundation, and I think honesty, credibility becomes a foundation, and once people trust you, never let that credibility go down.
in?
And no matter what, if you come across anything that does not suit that kind of criteria,
Mm.
you either shy away from that or move away from that and look for that credibility
Mm.
angle. And second thing, the value that I believe is having honesty and loyalty. and
Mhm.
uh, and I don't know why, but it's comes from my father, I guess. But loyalty is something that I always believe in. And so once I started working with Pfizer, they gave me lots of opportunities and to work with directly with the president of R&D as well as with the CEOs and whatnot, and that gave me so much empowerment, and that empowerment creates confidence in not only you but also that creates even bigger loyalty towards the company, and
Mm.
that loyalty build up creates value, and those values become so critical to you because then you are using your network to take that advantage to the
Mhm.
company. bring, some of the best things to the company, so that not only the company succeeds, but also, you are looked upon as a person to bring value up for the company as well as for the others. So I think those are the things I really value the most. And then also comes, making sure that, you are also, making sure that there are no conflicts of interest. I mean, so all those things become, very critical, because that's under honesty again. And
Brilliant. Very
and
interesting.
if there is anything, that comes to you saying it's a conflict, you kind of stay away from that and not be part of that. So
Well
that's
said.
that's what I mean.
Well said. And as you look back at life, what does success mean to Mac?
Okay, success means, you work hard at certain objectives. Okay, you have certain missions that you lay out, and certain towards certain goals you create action items, and once you execute on those action items, and you see the fruits come through after a certain time, that's what the success is to me. And when I worked hard at working on, let's say, the formulation of Zoloft, I mean, there were lots of failures on the way, but certainly, once you succeed and say eureka, it's a moment
Mhm.
that you say, oh my God, it works. And then that's where you feel, oh my God, this is success. So that's how I define success.
Wonderful. And a follow-up question, Mac, is who or what has inspired you?
Yeah, so my inspirations have been, many. And as I said, my uncle was the first inspiration. My father really pushed me for the best in me. And he said, always you have to, first of all, anywhere you go, my father's statement was, you have to establish sincerity. That was his statement. And he worked in the government in India, state government. He was deputy secretary for the state of Maharashtra, and he spent his entire life in the government. So I kind of knew, he worked with the chief ministers and whatnot. So his inclination to work with the government taught me a lot. And I think sincerity was the number one thing he taught me. And he said, hey, you will never go wrong if you are sincere and honest. So those are the big
Fantastic.
things.
And Mac, my last question to you, and this is for the thousands of people who will listen to all your words of wisdom. What would your advice be to a young individual, say a young pharmacist, who's starting off on his or her career in the corporate world?
Yeah, so I think the first question, and obviously every person is different, but anybody who is has the interest in science, make sure you are driven by science, number one. Number two, make sure your passion lies in that, because I've seen lots of people, if I told them to go to pharmacy school, they say, hey, it doesn't interest me, and that's okay, because your passion may be in the singing or arts or music, whatever. So go and do that. Do not mix, or do not try to change your passion and change that. So I think number one is passion. And if you are passionate about science and careers in pharmaceutical industry, I think the world is waiting for you, because as I said, the things are changing. And as you see, the vaccines, I mean, that has become the norm today. And with the J&J news and the AstraZeneca news, Pfizer and Moderna are looking better and better every day. So my advice to the youngsters is, as long as your passion is for science, look for the growth areas in that sciences, and the growth area change every few years. You look at that, and now CAR Ts are getting lots of kind of attention, and I think there are so many other things which are coming to fruition. I mean, continuous manufacturing, lyophilization, and some of the things that you see coming to fruition. I think people can take pride in learning those techniques and technologies and become experts. And I think sky is the limit. I mean, I think it's a great profession to be in, and I encourage all the youngsters to get to this and be the best they can be.
Fantastic. Mac, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you for all the incredible knowledge you've given to me and to all the people who are going to be listening to us. I wish you good health and lots of success.
Thank you very much, Ashutosh. I really appreciate everything what you do, and all the best to you. And I hope this is at least some inspiration to some youngsters.
I'm sure it will be. Thank you again. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.